Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us on the first of our business plan consultation webinars. We're delighted that so many people have submitted questions in advance and we've got people joining us live. My name's Tracy Vegro. I'm the Executive Director of Strategy and Innovation at the SRA, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Chris Hanford, who's the Director of Regulatory Policy. I'm going to bore you with a couple of minutes of process and housekeeping rules. Obviously, we're delighted that people are joining us live. If you want to submit questions as the discussion is going on, we're very happy to do that. And you just need to click on the link that's below the video and the questions will be submitted into our team. Chris and I are going to be occasionally looking to the side because we've also got live commentary and we want to make sure that we're picking up discussion properly. So there's a string of questions there. And as I say, the ones we've had in advance. Domestically, this is going out live and it's also going to be available to use on playback through the YouTube link. So if you have got questions that you just want to submit after, there's also a means to do that. We very much welcome any feedback you have, and there's a very short little questionnaire that, again, if you found this useful or if you think there's things we might do differently, let us know. As I say, it's the very first event in a series and we're trying very hard to make sure that we get engagement, not just from the profession, but from members of the public, from those in the tech space and innovators that we think might be interested in some of the objectives, and from third sector organisations. So thank you for giving the time. We're very conscious it's in the lunch hour, but I thought to begin with, I would just kick off with a couple of slides. Hopefully take us no more than 5 minutes and will allow us plenty of time for questions and discussion. But if I kick off now with a slight intro, I'm sure you all know the purpose of why we're here today. We've just gone live with our business plan. It's a draft business plan. It's the second year of our new 3-year corporate strategy. And so with the business plan to begin in November this year, 2021-22. The 3 core objectives are the same as we had last year, because we're very keen to show that we're on a direction of travel and that we're giving things time to bed in. You can see the objectives, they're set out very clearly here. It's about setting and maintaining high standards for the profession and ourselves as a regulator, absolutely actively supporting the adoption of legal tech and other innovation, and we'll talk about that a little bit more because that's an area we've had quite a few pre-submitted questions, and then updating and responding to change. Throughout all of these 3 core objectives, we're going to have issues that are conscious for all of us in everyday life: access to justice, equality and diversity, efficiency and value for money on the part of us as a regulator. All of those are what we call baked-in issues, that they're givens. I'm going to touch now on objective 1, some of the detail and a little more. So you'll see we've got a couple of slides on this, because if you like, these sort of little infographics just show the breadth of what we cover under this objective. The new solicitors qualifying examination is a key deliverable for us. We've really enjoyed so much co-creation on this. You know, all of stakeholders across all sorts of fields have given ideas, and it's now reached fruition and is going to be the first year and so on. So that's something that's massively important. We know that the standards and regulations, how we are judging how you are operating as a profession and so on, our commitment to ensuring that we are evidencing what we do in terms of policy and changing policies. We're committed to evaluations that we put out into the public domain. We want to share readily, and we want to also make sure that if there are any tweaks needed to policies and regulations, we make them in real time so that there's not a burden on the profession unnecessarily. The other thing that's important here is advocacy, and you'll see that's measured on this slide in how we're looking at what we do under this objective. There's also some other elements on the next slide which are also vital to what we do. Understanding the backdrop with things like anti-money laundering, an issue that only gets more serious. You only have to look into the newspapers to see the concerns around that. Compliance and enforcement, quality assurance, all of these things that are very, very important to how we operate and how we oversee the profession. I'm also going to touch here on independent research, because that's really vital to understanding the nature of the profession, understanding what is happening, what's been happening in the world post-COVID, how are we horizon scanning, planning? How are we getting information out to you about what our enforcement processes cover, professional assessments, all that kind of stuff? You need to know that real time, and we need to be absolutely on top of the data that we hold. The other issue is around how all of us as the profession and you are operating. And one of the things for us that we said was a key commitment was developing our presence in Wales. So that's something that we highlight in the business plan, and it's something that we're touching on in relation to policy in terms of who we are working with across the country, and trying to have a slightly more regional element to what we do and develop partnerships in other regions, not just Wales. I'm going to turn to objective 2 now. This is one, I am the strategy and innovation director, so clearly what we do in relation to tech and innovation has to work for the profession and for consumers, and meet the requirements that we would set from a regulatory perspective. So we probably get more questions around tech and innovation through the COVID pandemic than we'd had before, because there were a lot of adaptations that people had to make in operating digitally and through virtual means. And we've tried to be open in how we shared some of that data and insight. And we've tried very hard to put into practice systems and process changes here at the regulator to make sure that we were establishing a good enabling backdrop for tech and innovation. Some of the things that are highlighted here are around how we've worked collaboratively. A lot of the departmental attention at BEIS is around the digital economy, and we're always trying very hard to flag that professional services and legal services as a part of that wider sector are vital for the economy, and actually innovation around those and qualifications and technical skills are something that we're very interested in the department facilitating on our behalf and on behalf of the profession. We're keen to make new relationships with all sorts of other players in the market. I think we've all noted cases around Trustpilot reviews and so on. We are piloting activity, and many firms have been willing partners with us on some of that to try and understand what sort of data is useful in relation to legal services for consumers to be making informed decisions and choosing the right professional. And ditto, how can the profession itself make sure it's meeting the needs of bodies like the Competition and Markets Authority, who in their report last year set all sorts of issues that they would like to see progress on from the profession around data transparency, costs and so on. So we're looking at that also from a perspective of being innovative. Some of the others, our own SRA innovation space. We've had a couple of questions that we'll probably get around to shortly around how can we, the regulator, give advice on technology and innovation real time? How can we engage with people who've got questions? Is our SRA innovation space still meeting the needs of the profession, or actually could we be doing more? So we will touch on that. And then how legal tech can help with really important issues like access to justice and making sure that people are getting the help they need. Are there means where technology is not a blocker but an enabler, conscious of what people say all the time around this concept of the digital divide? But are there areas where we can sort of help the profession set a lead and actually benefit the profession itself, consumers and regulatory objectives? Objective 3, I'm going to speed up a little bit, but again, vital for us. It sounds a cliche, doesn't it? Anticipating and responding to change, given the past months and how we have all adapted. But nonetheless, from a regulatory perspective, we do need to understand where the challenges are likely to come in the future, and where those challenges bring opportunities around collaboration, where we as a regulator can do work that actually benefits all of the profession. So touching on research and expanding our evidence base. Do we give you updates real time? People often say our red analysis is really useful. Could we be doing that in different ways? Are there different mechanisms that people would like to access some of the research that we do? We try and live by the rules we apply to those we regulate. We want to be transparent in our processes. We want to be open. We want you to see us as a regulator that is here to assist when things come up, not just deal with things when they've gone wrong. And we want to very much establish that sort of horizon scanning, intelligence gathering that is for the benefit of everybody, not just for us to be meeting, as I say, our own needs. We very much are putting our needs and the needs of the profession as our core objective in this field. And then the extent that public legal education and some of the work that we try to do, how do we access data that you want, and do we put it out in the public domain? Are we interested in, more sessions like this? Do webinars? Do we as a regulator need to come out to you a little bit more? How do you want to engage with us? Also falls under this. We don't want to just put lots of material in the public domain because we can say we've done something. Is it meeting your needs? How easy do you think it is to come and talk to the regulator and get steers on things when you need them? So that's a sort of package of areas. Very finally, my last slide is just to highlight some of the practicalities. In this business plan, we're also looking at the budget for this year. We've given quite a granular breakdown of where we're spending or planning to spend the profession's contributions. And for the first time, we have got a budget plan consultation at the same time as the Law Society is also consulting. So you can again see a much better, broader picture and understanding of where the activity is and what the money is spent on. I absolutely want to just end on a note of please contribute. We often don't get as many contributions to the consultation on the business plan as we like. I've been here just over a year now. When I joined last year, we were just coming in to the responses coming back from the business plan. And I found it fascinating as someone new to the organisation looking at some of the responses. But I was also struck, compared with my last regulator, we got slightly less number of responses than I'd imagined. So this is a bit of a plea from Chris and I to let us have your comments, and first and foremost, definitely let us have your ideas, because that's going to be really vital in ensuring that what we do next year, the second year of our 3-year corporate strategy, is really meeting the profession and wider public requirements. We're a public interest body, we're a regulator. Where we can, we will pick up causes and take action where we can with the department, for example, or with the other regulators. But we really do want to be sure that you are consistent in your appraisal of us, of doing the job that you think we're here to do. So it's an opportunity today, and as I say, really every chance for you to ask questions live if you want to submit them through the link. We've got some pre-submitted ones. I'm going to give Chris 5 minutes now to add any observations, and then we'll get into some of the questions, and hopefully by 1 o'clock we'll have done justice. If we finish sooner or we run out of questions, that's fine too. We won't keep people, because as I say, you can look at the session back too. So Chris, over to you for 5 minutes observations.
Thank you, Tracy. So yes, obviously we've got our three corporate strategy objectives, which run through all of our business plan proposals. I think Tracy did a great job of running through the key aspects of those. Obviously, we're really keen to hear from you about what's of interest to you, and I'm here to answer with Tracy any questions that you have. So it's probably best if we kick into the questions, and I can reflect on what we're proposing in response to those.
Yeah. So I'm going to kick off with one around sort of the SRA and how we operate. So we've had a number of people observe that as a regulator, they think that we are approachable and open. Do you want to say something, Chris, about how we have been operating in terms of some of our pilot activities, how we try to engage firms, just a bit of the backdrop around some of the key projects we're running?
Yeah, sure. So you're right. I mean, it's been a big focus of ours over the past few years to make sure that or to try and be as accessible as possible, and to hear from and engage with as many people as possible, and really let that and research and evidence inform our approach to the work that we're doing. So one of the things that you'll see running throughout the business plan proposals, and particularly in relation to Objective 1, is that we're very conscious that we've changed quite a lot over the past few years. We've got totally new standards and regulations, and what we're asking you to comply with has changed a lot. And we're very keen to understand the impacts of that. So we're committed to doing proper evaluations of all of the work that we do. So featuring strongly, and we're just out at the moment where we are looking at our 1-year evaluation of the standards and regulations, and we are trying to survey all firms, all solicitors. So we're really keen to hear from you about how you think they're going, and we can build on that into the future. And we've made the same commitment through all of our work. Picking up on that, I mean, we did a 1-year evaluation of our transparency requirements around price and service information that firms put out to help consumers find and choose the right legal services provider for them. We had some really good feedback as a result of that, and some positive results. One thing we are conscious of, and has come through some CMA reports as well, is that people have highlighted the importance of having quality information as well as price and service information. So what the approach that we've taken here is a slightly new one for us, in that we've started pilots with digital comparison tools providers, and with review sites, peer review sites, and also with firms. And I think we've got over 80 firms signed up to our pilots now, to really try and test how quality information might best be used, what people want, what firms are finding useful. And we started that off looking at peer reviews, which is what people told us would be most useful for them. So they're live at the moment, information on our website, so please do go and have a look at those. And we plan to do, we're doing this webinar, we're doing workshops around the business plan. We've got lots of stuff in our events planner for the year. So please do have a look at that as well. And we really do want to hear from people as much as possible.
Thanks, Chris. I can only echo that in all sorts of fields of regulation I've working in piloting and getting a good evidence base, and then getting people to check that they agree with your evidence base, just means that the implementation of any regulatory changes is so much easier, and you've got a much better understanding of the likely cost benefit analysis too. So that's great. I'm conscious we've got some questions appearing, so if I may, I'm going to move on to objective 2 territory. We've got a good question that's come in just now from Evan Villas at Amplified Global. And I think this is a good challenge for us. And I'll kick off with this one, but you can prepare yourself, which is okay. The SRA clearly has a strong innovation focus, which is great to see. What will be the signs of success for the programme in a couple of years' time? Now, I think on this one, I'd say, well, thank you for giving us a 2-year opportunity window, because one of the things I would say about technology and innovation in the legal services sector is it needs to be segmented a little bit. I don't think you're going to see quite the same successes in some areas as you might in others. And what's important for us is to be sure that we're starting in the right direction. So we've got some work that Oxford University are undertaking for us at the moment that is going to help inform how we are demonstrating our key indicators and success factors for this work. So it's a really important challenge. The other thing I'd say, Ewan, is that it's very important for us to be engaging with lots of people, and innovators like your organisation could be important partners for us in enabling the profession to see that there are opportunities around use of technology in different ways. And so the idea around proof of concept testing, using the SRA innovation space to absolutely make sure we're capturing the right issues and the right questions is another thing that I think is quite important in terms of the how. I think the success of the programs I would see would be that more people were starting to come to us, both innovators and firms, and that we at least were known as the regulator who gave people a means to innovate, a space where we knew that proof of concept testing, learning by doing, sharing in an open source, open platform kind of way were the kind of ways we did it. And I think it'll be important for us to just make sure that we are checking in not just with the profession, but with investors and innovators to see if there's more that we could be doing to introduce the profession to the people who might be able to help them co-create some solutions, rather than seeing tech in legal services as a one size fits all, because I don't think it is. I think it's much more complicated than areas even like fintech and so on. I think there are more parallels with medtech and law tech than there are with some of the other professional services. So they're my initial thoughts. But Chris, anything you want to add on Ewan's question?
Yeah, well, I think as you'll see from the business plan, this is an area we really do want to hear from you about, from people who are looking to innovate, like Ewan, and how we can support them. Also from different types of law firms around how you are hoping to innovate, or the reasons why you think you're not able to, and whether there's anything that we as a regulator might be able to do to help with that. So, as Tracy said, really building that understanding, and the real focus that we have now with lots of engagement work, research that we're doing. We've also obviously run our own innovation space since 2016 now, where we've invited people to come and talk to us when they want to innovate, and we can support them in different ways, whether that's helping them through an authorization process, giving them some guidance, support, helping them connect with other people that they need to speak to, other regulators, or with law firms, etc. Or we can possibly waive some of our rules where that's possible. So we've got to start. We realise things are changing. We're trying to really build our understanding. We've got other things in the pipeline which are set out in the business plan, but really I think the true success will be whether we're delivering what innovators, what law firms need in order to develop technology and to innovate in a way that helps the public, helps the sector, helps law firms, etc. So yeah, please do let us know your thoughts.
Thank you, Chris. I've got another question from Philip Holt, who is a director at AML Control, and it's a very similar one actually, which is about how the message is that the SRA is keen to work alongside technology companies, which is good. But what should firms wishing to work in partnership with the SRA do, and how should we approach the SRA? Are there any resources available, any links or any contacts specifically at the SRA for companies to communicate with? Now, I think the answer is yes, but we plan to do more, Philip. One of the things that Chris and I have been doing is expanding the team a little bit. So we have a new head of technology who's going to be joining us in a matter of weeks. He's come from a very different sector of technological innovation in aviation, and is used to working very closely with the CAA. So we're looking at models. We're looking at what the FRC do, what the FCA do. What is the perfect team or approach that we might want to model? We're definitely looking at how we can make it quick, seamless. The SRA can help you navigate what our processes are likely to be. Can we do more to make it a bit seamless in terms of whether it's an ethical question or a question for our legal advisory team, or is it just about does it meet our standards and regulations? All of that are things we're currently absolutely looking to improve. SRA Innovates serve people well, I think, but will it do for what we want to do in the next 2 years? We think not, and we think we need to make some improvements. We will hopefully be sharing those towards the end of the consultation process when we decide on the final business plan. So I would encourage you to keep asking these kinds of questions and keep letting us have your ideas, because we want to shape things not in a way that suits us, but very much which suits the profession and those innovative companies that we think, there are three parts to this story, and the consumer impact. So, we're very much mindful of this has got to work for everybody, and we don't want to make artificial barriers. Equally, we don't want to miss out on looking at something that's a legitimate protection issue or a professional concern. We want to try and make sure we do it all at the same time. Anything to add, Chris, on that one?
I think feel free to contact Tracy or I. You could just email us, and we'll pick up any queries. We do have some resources available. For example, we won some government funding to run something we call the Legal Access Challenge, where we invited people to come up with innovative and tech-based solutions, potential solutions to help people, so individuals and small businesses, get the legal help that they needed. And we've put out reports drawing on our experience from that. which emphasises what people going through the process told us that they needed. And one of the key things, as Trace highlighted, is that the regulatory landscape can be quite complex for people who aren't engaged in it day to day, and there's lots of different players. So not just legal regulation, you've got data regulation, you've got your financial services regulation can come into play. So helping to navigate through that is one of the areas where we can support with. But lots of information in there, lots of ideas to look at. So please do have a look at that. There'll be more coming later in the year. We'll also be running some regional innovation roadshows later in the year as well. So plenty of opportunities to talk to us and hear from us.
Thanks, Chris. And all I would also add is people often talk about how do I access some initial funding or something. You know, the whole government digital strategy, we are trying to work more closely with the Department for Business, because obviously where we can signpost sources of funding, their whole Digital Britain strategy is based around every sector of the economy, adapting innovative digital technologies for the benefit of the overall UK PLC. And where we can, at every opportunity, Chris and I are pointing out just how important the legal sector is and just how much it contributes. So all of that is good stuff. And if you've got any issues around that, we'd also be very happy to signpost or affect any introductions there. So we want to look at ourselves as being a conduit to quite a lot of additional help and support that people may have just not thought about asking around before. But again, COVID, one of the things it probably has done, and most people are telling us this, is they've adapted and made changes they never thought they would have made, but now they're definitely going to stick with them. They're not going backwards again. And so working digitally and offering clients different approaches and different means of having client conferences, that's going to stay. So therefore things like security, cyber risk become all the more important. And maybe for us as a regulator, we need to be more clear about some of the information we've got to share on that. You'll probably, some of you will know, we're consulting currently on a very small change to terms and conditions relating to cyber cover and so on for more and more people who have been working from home. So again, we want to be responsive, and we want to be the kind of regulator that can fix something real time, not wait for it to be a massive issue or something that's causing a block to the profession, or indeed anything from a compliance perspective. So definitely keep coming with questions and ideas around that front, because we're very happy to do that and discuss and broker with the right people. I've got one final question on tech, because I'm conscious that that's where we're getting quite a lot of the interest live. And it's another one from Amplified Global, and it's particular around, to be accessible, documents need to be engaging and understandable to a wide range of people. How can the SRA or other stakeholders improve the intelligibility of legal documents?
Yeah. So I mean, that's a good question, and I mean you're right that lawyers speak can be hard for people to understand, particularly your individuals, your average person. I think we can play a role, and we do play a role in different ways. So, for example, we, along with the other legal regulators, run something called the Legal Choices website, which I hope some of you at least will have seen. That's our consumer-facing web pages. We have lots of accessible information on there. And we also have a law dictionary service where people can look up terms, and they're sort of translated into everyday language for them. Looking at the Back to Legal Access Challenge thing that we ran, some of the winners of that and some of the tech offerings that we supported were very much focused on delivering services particularly to vulnerable people in a way that they understand, using bots, etc. And I'm really interested in where next the tech will take us. Obviously, I'm familiar with Amplify, who were one of the pioneers in the government-funded Law Tech UK sandbox, which we were an integral part of, and a key part of the regulatory response unit there, where we supported people going through it, working together as regulators across the legal sector and with regulators in other sector to deal with regulatory queries and issues that they had. So I'm aware of Amplify trying to translate complex, using text to translate complex sort of language into more accessible pieces. So really interested to see where technology like that might end up. We've also put guidance out there around client cares letters for people following research with the legal ombudsman. So really important that law firms are thinking about how to make what they put out there kind of accessible and understandable for people.
Will be done in a way that is open source, readily available for everybody. Yeah, we aren't, as it were, backing any particular approach or saying that this or that company is the one that people in the profession need to work with. What we're saying is there's all sorts of changes and opportunities for you as a firm to do something in a different way that works for you. And I think they're the learnings and things that we want to share more openly. We see that as something that might be useful. We'd welcome your views on that. And again, it's part of the consultation process. You know, how in a world where technological change seems to be getting ever faster, do we all not go too far or too slow, but how do we get the approach that's the right one for you, the profession, and as I say, to the benefit of all. I've got another question now, which is getting back to some important principles of how the firms operate. Elaine Passini, who's the director of Pickled Ginger Marketing, which I think is a fantastic name. Will the SRA advise legal firms to ensure their legal cashiers have training to support their ever-increasing pressures? And organisations such as the ILFM, for example, support and trains and advises with best technology. So I don't know if Elaine is getting at how do we broker that people access the training that's available, and is there a role for us in that? But what do you think on that one, Chris?
Yeah, I'm sure. I've stood up at the ILFM conference on many occasions and been grilled by their members. So I know the organisation. I know the organisation well. So I mean, I think it's for firms that we regulate to put in place the systems and controls that they need, and the training for their staff around handling clients' money. We obviously have accounts rules that set out the standards that need to be met and what needs to be done at a high level. And then there are people within the firms, compliance officers that will be responsible for making sure that happens. So I think we have requirements there, and I think it's really up to the firm about how they meet those requirements. And we've got lots of information and lots of support on our website around the accounts rules. It's one of the areas where we get the most queries. And yeah, included within our codes is the requirement that people are competent to do the work that they need to do. So I don't think we will dictate that a particular training is required, but obviously I really appreciate the vital role that legal cashiers play in making sure that law firms run well, deliver services to their clients the way it's expected, and keeps the client money safe and moving quickly and appropriately at the right time. So any support that firms give to them, I think, is a good thing. And I appreciate all of the efforts and the good training that the ILFM and others do in this area.
Yeah, I mean, I endorse exactly your view on that, Chris. I think coming relatively new, not that new now, to this area of regulation, I think professional standards are strong, and I think the continuous improvement and the kind of culture of ongoing competence is writ very large across the profession, and that's a very good thing from a consumer perspective. I think also people expectations of what's the minimum requirement of doing the job competently is not the same as people who excel at what they do, and that's something that, again, if we get into a world where the CMA want more and more data about all sorts of aspects of a firm to be much more sort of publicly available and so on, then the levels of training and upskilling that are very high standards, I would say, in the profession. That's something to shout about, isn't it? And so some of these things may become much more important because the more and more material that is out there, and the more and more people may ask these kind of questions in deciding which law firm to work with or not. So I've got another question that is a similar kind of approach. Sharon Smith, Senior Director at Carr & Co Solicitors, is asking us, what are the future plans for price transparency, which you kind of touched on at the very start, Chris? And does anyone in the SRA have any experience of working in the legal sector? Which I took to be a slightly pointed challenge about do we understand enough about what our policies and principles and regulations require of the profession. So that's a fair challenge for anybody to make of the regulator that is setting the rules by which they have to apply, I think. So price transparency, I mean, I've got a few views. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. I think, as I mentioned earlier, then being evidence-based here is crucial to us, and we've spent a lot of time speaking to firms and to consumers and commissioning research to understand their views, both in how we originally set our price and service requirements, and then in evaluating a year on to see what's happening in practice. And as I mentioned earlier, there's been some real positives coming through from that, with a high number of the individuals and the small businesses saying that they look at the price information and that they find that information helpful. And some really encouraging things as well, I think, from firms' perspectives. And one of the findings that kind of struck me is that back in 2015, when we kind of started on this journey, and the research at that time was showing that a majority of people, I think about 85% of small businesses, were saying that they thought that legal services were unaffordable, so they didn't access them. So one of the key things that we were trying to do, and the Competition and Markets Authority, who made recommendations in this area too, was to give people the information that they need and might find helpful to understand that they can access legal services, how to find someone, and how to choose the right person. And our 1 year evaluation research suggested that there's only 10% of people that were saying that they now think that legal services are unaffordable. I don't think they're directly comparable figures, but they seem to show a movement in the right direction to benefit to everyone there. So I also touched on earlier how about our approach going forward. What you might expect in the future is we want to build on the evidence base, and we want to engage with people to develop the policies, and that's why we are taking this pilot approach, which is proving successful with quality indicators. So you can expect more of that. Competition and Markets Authority reviewed progress over the past few years and published a report at the end of last year, suggesting with recommendations of what else might be done, including should we extend where we have price and service transparency requirements into other areas of law, because we started with a few to test and then evaluate what was happening before moving forward. So we'll reflect on those recommendations and see what we do there. But again, whatever we do will be built on a research and testing and engagement model. We'll also be looking at what guidance and support we have there for law firms, so that they can provide the information in the way that we require, but also in the way that people want, and the way that will probably work best for them as a business. So we'll be looking at reviewing our guidance and our support there, as well as making sure that that firms are meeting our requirements and are complying with those. We have an ongoing program to make sure that happens as well.
Thanks, Chris. I mean, I agree with all of that. Sharon's question's a good one. I think as a regulator, our regulatory philosophy is that we want to be guided by evidence. I'm pleased I have the research and analysis team in the patch alongside policy, because I think that helps us all make sure we're asking the right questions, as well as coming up with policies and ideas that are going to help the profession and consumers generally. The other thing I would say is legal services will never be like a hotel room or a firm of energy. So it is not simple to come up with indicators, and people always look at price. But actually, when you're paying for someone's judgment and real understanding of something, it's very different to just buying something where price is probably your key indicator. Chris touched on the research that had happened. That was commissioned before my arrival, but it reported in almost my first few months. And I think it's a very interesting piece of work. And again, if people want to just check it out on our website, it's remarkable how consumers are very savvy, and they're not just going for cheapest price. They want to understand about what the kind of process will be. In the quality indicator work we're doing, we're having a very interesting dialogue with the legal services board around what are the things that will make consumers more empowered. And it's possibly not price information, it's possibly more legal education, so they can be a more informed consumer rather than just actually have data that may not help them. So we've got to be sure we're answering the right questions, I think, and not leaping to any assumptions. And as I say, my watch out is that it's much easier in something where it's a cost per firm of something, or there's a direct tangible thing. Advice, services, it's very different, and we don't want to make a burden for the profession if it doesn't actually benefit anybody. So that, sorry to sound a bit, broken record, but cost benefit analysis is really important, and that's why we value your input. Without the advice and help from those who are in the profession, we can't possibly do the complete job about understanding all the angles on something. And we're here to make sure that regulation is proportionate and balanced and so on, and easy to understand and easy to comply with. So they're the kind of goals. And so I really do encourage more people to contribute on some of those projects that we do as pilots. We were really pleased on the quality indicators that we got a number of firms. I think we got 80 in the end. Within a minute of asking, people were signing up to, and that learning by doing concept. We very much welcome people's views on that, and is that hitting the right spot, and are people finding that useful? So again, for anybody on the call who hasn't submitted a question or not yet, we could certainly cover that in the last 5 minutes. I'm conscious we've been going 3/4 of an hour. I haven't been told that there are any more questions that have come in live for us to consider. So unless people someone's now typing a question, so I'll let that come through. That's good. Okay, so we've just got one more question that's come up, and it's about our regulatory approach, and what is the model of regulation that the SRA intends to follow for the business planning cycle. So I'll spare Chris on this one. I'll have a first go. I think it's very much that a 3-year corporate strategy is one that sets a direction of travel, and we don't want to look like we're having to, go from A to B to go to C again and then end up at Z. But we do want it to be a corporate strategy that's live, and so we want to be responsive. We want to make sure that changes we've implemented, so the standards and regulations that were done, we're evaluating that currently, and we're doing that work so that we can ensure that the intentions we had for it and the objectives we thought we were fulfilling are ones that are actually giving the benefits we expected. So that's one of the ways that we think we will definitely keep operating. Independent evaluations that we share very publicly and openly is going to be quite a good keep us honest point of view. I think we do want to be mindful that once the COVID crisis is out of the way, furlough may end. We may see more shocks in the environment, conveyancing and areas of law that have been very buoyant. Who knows what will happen? So we are very mindful that this can be another very interesting year, even with the success of the vaccine and maybe more people returning to work. There are some issues that will probably still be with us, and we want to be responsive in our approach as a regulator. So I really do put out a plea for people to get in touch with us. Don't see us as remote. If you want to talk to us about a policy issue or any other issue, you don't only have to come to us when it's a regulatory matter. We'd be very interested in your views more generally. And we're very interested in reaching reaching out to members of the public. It's often very hard to do, and people are very busy. We're conscious of that. We don't want to take people's time unnecessarily, but we definitely want to be a regulator that's seen as being out there. One of our objectives is around as being an authoritative commentator. We can only do that if we're addressing the questions that really matter to people. And so all of you making sure that the engagement isn't just once a year in an event like this, but is ongoing, is very important for us. Chris, what would you say about our approach?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that as the corporate strategy and the business plan sets out, then we are very committed to understanding what is going on in the outside world, what developments are happening, and wow, there's been a lot of developments for everyone in every sense over the past year or so, hasn't there? So we really do, we are building up our research, our internal sort of horizon scanning function, and engaging with people and hearing from you and understanding, what you're seeing, what's important to you, how that's impacting on, what you can do, how you deliver services, what people want. And as Tracy said, I think one of the things we're also really trying to get to objective 3 is we appreciate that people don't think of things solely and this is a regulatory issue. It's just an issue, and we can play a role in sort of working with others and convening to make sure that where there's something that's not within a regulator's gift to address or deal with, but does impact on our kind of our regulatory objectives and purpose, then we can play a role there too. So please do speak to us and let us know kind of the issues that you're facing.
Well, thank you, Chris. I don't think we've got any other questions that have come up. I'm just going to try and wrap up with a few observations. Number one, of course, is a thank you. Thank you for the people who've joined us live, and thank you for people who submitted questions in advance. As we said, you can get in touch with us. The consultation is live right and through till almost the end of June. I think it's the 25th or the 26th. So please let us have your views. I can't stress that enough. But besides all that, get in touch. We always want people to give us their thoughts and ideas. We want that to be our philosophy going forward. Anybody who has got any additional questions or anything that's not particularly touched on by the business plan, I'm conscious of what Amplified was saying about, how do people get in touch? How do they access us? That's set. You've got the contact details. Look at our website. We're trying to put more and more information on there. We're trying to use LinkedIn more actively to put out little thought pieces to just highlight things that we're doing and activities. Please join in. If you think that there's something there around a regional issue or something like that, also get in touch. We're very conscious that we want to do more across the nation and not just be London centric. And then finally, just a reminder that you can watch this back. It'll be available, I think, as a YouTube video. And any other questions, any other contributions, feel free. As I say, 25th of June, the slide just flashed up to remind us that's the deadline for contributions. Wholehearted thanks for everybody who's joined and all those who submitted questions. And I think also a big thanks to Chris, who did an awful lot of answering of the questions. That was appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Aurel.